I love therapy, and in fact, I've been going to therapy since I was around 6 years old. Though I talk about therapy a lot and may interview some therapists on the show on occasion, nothing that is said in this podcast should be considered a replacement for therapy. If you are struggling, I urge you to please seek guidance from a therapist because you are absolutely worth it. Hello, everyone. You are listening to Wine, Dine, and 69, a podcast about dating, relationships, sex, and self-love. I am your host, Rachel Dalton, and I'm coming at you still from Michigan. Happy almost New Year, everyone. I am going to be heading back to Philly in the next 24 hours, but still here now, and I am here with my guest in the intro this week, my dog, Clover, my family dog. She's shy, so she probably won't say anything unless somebody walks by her backyard, in which case she'll bark, but she's probably not going to say anything relevant to this podcast, unfortunately. But I imagine that the way that I feel about her is probably how people feel when they have kids, just this complete adoration. I look at her and I just am like, how are you so perfect? Except when you bark. How do you exist? Like, I don't understand how you are so beautiful. We don't deserve dogs. I am super excited to get into this week's episode. Thank you for all the feedback from last week when, I kind of opened up about my very important pilgrimage, VIP. This week we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty sex stuff with Layla from the Curious Girl Diaries. This is a interview that I have tried to do so many times. And it was completely my fault that it didn't work out for various reasons, just things going on in my life. I suck, basically. But I'm so glad that we finally managed to make it happen. Layla is incredible. And what's kind of special about this episode is that we did a collaboration. So you can go over to her podcast, The Curious Girl Diaries, and catch her interviewing me. It's me in the hot seat for a change, talking about all of the spicy things. So definitely go and check that out. Some, I guess, housekeeping things. I did, in fact, post my first TikTok. I was surprised that I managed to do it. I was surprised that it was so easy, but I did do it. I don't know what makes a TikTok successful or viral or whatever, but it has over 1,000 views, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. I told the story that was kind of the genesis of this podcast, the hospital blowjob story. So if you're on TikTok, you can go check that out. I guess today in the intro, I kind of want to touch on something that Layla and I kind of talk about in this episode. Oh, but first, I want to do a little correction. I was mentioning Dear Diana, the podcast, to Layla in the episode. It is not Dear Diana, it is Dirty Diana, which makes way more sense, but that's the podcast with Demi Moore that I said reminded me of the Curious Girl Diaries. So my mistake, you'll hear me reference Dear Diana in this podcast episode, but it is Dirty Diana, and it is a Q Code podcast. It is amazing, so go check that out as well. So Layla and I in this episode touch on something related to like New Year's resolutions. I don't know. I wanted to do something kind of different for this last episode of this first year of the show. And Layla kind of talked about a sex bucket list that she created. And so I guess I am wondering, what's on your list? What are you going to try to do this year, whether it be with a partner or solo? I can tell you the big thing on my list right now is to take things slow. And that goes for my own personal self-love life, but it also goes for, my emotional life as well. I'm just really taking things slow, balancing, and enjoy being in the moment, as it were. So yeah, tell me what's on your bucket list. You can be anonymous. Just send it my way and let me know. I want to know. And think about what ways can you challenge yourself in that area. As Layla and I talk about in this episode, we prioritize a ton of different areas in our lives. We prioritize our career, we prioritize our romantic relationships, and, sex is a part of that. But we don't really take the time, many of us don't anyway, to make our sexual health a priority. So, think about what you can add to that resolution list of yours that might benefit in this particular area, because we don't give it as much attention as it deserves. In terms of, resolutions for myself, last year was the year that I decided not to do resolutions, but I decided to do a word, and the word was movement. And I have to say, these 6 weeks being back in Michigan I have whiplash. Things have moved so fast in my life, and I am not ready to talk about it quite yet, but I will talk about it in the next episode, as that is when things kind of are going to be rolling very, very quickly. So nothing bad, all exciting things in my professional life. So be talking about that in the future, but didn't want to spend too much of the intro talking about myself, as I feel like I did enough of that in last week's episode. So tell me what's on your sex bucket list, whether that be, maybe it'd be a good idea to have one for yourself solo that you want to focus on by yourself, and one that you want to focus on with a partner. So, for example, I want to take time, and I think I might want to try working with more anal toys just by myself. Why not? Go big or go home, right? As they say, but not too big. Anyway, everyone, I hope you really enjoy this episode with Layla. We had a great conversation. She was such a blast. We just kind of recorded for a few hours one day, on her show and then on this show. So please go check out that episode as well. She got a few things out of me that I don't know that I've shared on this podcast. So it's a little spicy over there on the Curious Girl Diaries. And we had a ton of fun, and I am hoping to collaborate with her again in the future and be far more organized this time, now that I feel like, my life is in a little bit more in a state of balance. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope that you are doing what you need to do to keep yourself safe, as the Omicron variant is starting to surge again, and I hope that you're spending time with loved ones and being safe and trying to find the good moments. The past couple years have been really tough, so trying to find the joy in the small moments as best you can. It's really important. So I love you. Happy New Year. And going to cut to a quick commercial break, and then please enjoy my conversation with Layla.
Hey there, I'm Megan Martin, and I put the manic in Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
And I'm Janelle Megan, and I'm a self-proclaimed Bond girl, and I make every conversation way too deep.
We're both professional actors, producers, and models.
Cause and Creation is a podcast where we talk about all things creative, including interviewing other awesome artists that are breaking new ground.
We'll be taking a deep dive into who they are, the work they do, and more importantly, what moves them as artists.
You'll get an inside look into the minds of award-winning filmmakers who are promoting new content, writers who are on the first draft of their novel, video game designers who are creating a whole new world from scratch, and so much more.
If you want to get to know a creative, or just want to get to know us, come hang out with us at Cause and Creation every other Thursday.
Cue the applause.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am here today, super excited to interview my guest today. Today, I'm talking to Layla from the Curious Girl Diaries. How are you today?
I am fabulous. I'm very excited to be on your show. This has been a long time coming.
I know. I know. I've been such a mess, and I'm just I emailed you, and I was like, I really want to collaborate with you. I am so sorry.
Oh,
I'm so
no
excited
worries.
to have you on finally.
Yeah, I'm excited to be on.
Yeah, so let's kind of start off with you telling the listeners what the Curious Girl Diaries are, a little bit about you, how that got started, and just a little bit of background on you.
Okay, so the way I found myself to the Curious Girl Diaries, the way I sort of stumbled upon it, and the way it sort of created it was I had been abstinent for 3.5 years, not really on purpose. It just kind of happened, which sounds strange to say, like, oh, not having sex for that long just sort of happens. But it does just sort of happen. You get so busy, you're consumed with other things.
It's not a priority.
It
Yeah.
wasn't a priority. And then one day I woke up and said, what the heck am I doing? Actually, it was, what the fuck am I doing? You are wasting the pretty, like, get out there. And I very quickly, when I had this epiphany, like, this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this. I very quickly shifted gears, kind of put a plan into place to change that. And, I thought, well, I'm going to make this fun. I'm going to document this, and I'm going to make a sex bucket list, and I'm going to devote a year to making my sex life a priority, and I'm going to go for it. And originally I thought that I would blog about it because I came across a really amazing sex blogger, and she kind of inspired me. But it turns out I'm a terrible blogger, terrible writer. I don't have that ability. I had these delusions of grandeur, Rachel. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to write this. I'm just going to, like, write these amazing stories, and they're going to be so captivating. No, it was awful for me to sit down. Like, when I had to, like, force myself to sit down and write, and I was just like, I had to be honest. I'm like, I don't have it. Like, I don't have it. So I thought I was going to do is podcast about just fun little stuff, sexy stuff, and then the real nitty gritty details about encounters with different people as I was scratching stuff off my bucket list, that I would blog about it. Well, I blogged for a while, and then I finally said, I concede. And I just started, then the podcast really took off because that was all about, it was all inclusive. It just became everything I was doing in order to make my sex life a priority. So that's what
fantastic.
I did. Yeah.
And what a cool idea too. I feel like not a lot of people, sex is like something that we do, something that, it's a small part of our life, but to put it front and center, like, you don't hear about that a lot.
No, you do not. And that's kind of one of my big pushes, or, one of the kind of continuing themes of my podcast is that I find it so interesting how people, we have all of these goals. We put all of these things at the, like you said, at the, that make those a priority, where it's, maybe physical fitness, mental well-being, eating right, exercising, just all this stuff. Like, oh, we always say, oh, I want to make more money. We have all these goals, but who says, this year, my goal is to make my sex life smoking hot? Like, nobody really ever does that. And
yeah.
And what I realized when I did, because I just thought it would be fun and adventurous, but what I realized when I finally did was, holy shit, we are so tied to our sexuality and or the squelching of it. Like, you can either make it a priority or not, but either way, you're going to either reap the benefits of that decision or reap the consequences of that decision, because denying yourself as a sexual being is very counterintuitive. Our sex drive and our desires and the things that we have in us sexually as human beings, it's so important, and nobody talks about it, and nobody makes it a priority. And it's really, if you think about it, it's the one reason we are still here all these years later on the planet, is because our amazing sex drive has kept us alive. And, and so again, and it doesn't, I'm not, my show is not about procreation, but this is a very important thing to us for connectivity, relationships, and it's weird to me. It dawned on me, like, well, this is really weird that it's the one thing that's kept us alive all this time, but we never prioritize it. Like going to the gym. Well, you could say that helps extend your life, right? But does it keep the generations going? No, it doesn't.
No.
Does eating right? It's good for us as an individual, but does that keep the generations going? No, it doesn't.
And those are things that are good for you in your lifespan, but not
right.
Past
it's not
your lifespan.
Yeah. And so I just, I started to kind of go, this is odd, and I'm gonna dig into this, and I'm gonna run with it, and I'm also going to see. The big question for me was, who would I be at the end of this social experiment with myself? Where would I be? Because I really thought, I'm going to do this for a year, and then I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to go back to business as usual in my life as I knew it, and that's going to be that. But I'd hope that I would reap some important information from it about me. And it just turned into something so much bigger than I could have ever even imagined.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so you are anonymous, and you have a pseudonym. Tell me a little bit about that, what that experience is like, and where you came up with it.
Yeah. So originally, when I told you about that, so the blogger that I follow, and I want to give her props because she's amazing. I've interviewed her. It's Girl on the Net. And if you go to her site and really look at her, she is a writer. Like, this is where I got my inspiration from. And this is why I realized, like, I am not in that ballpark. Like, no. And she writes about her sex life, and she writes about sexual experiences and sexual fantasy. And she's so gifted at it. And one of the things that she did was she was anonymous, and she's really, and done this for well over, she'd been doing it for a long time before I stumbled across her. So I think she's, gosh, I want to say I think at least a decade into it. Girl on the Net. And, she's talented. But one of the things that she did was she stayed anonymous. And I thought, well, that sounds like a good idea. So I had adopted that philosophy early on. And then when I was sort of building this up and starting my website, one of the guys that I was seeing at the time, who knew about the podcast, and he was a very high up person with Apple, with their, security, and they sent him all over the world to, different places. And he said, he was also the one that said to me, you need to pick, you can't give out your identity, number one. And number two, you need to pick a name of, a pseudonym. And I was like, okay, I was just like, okay, this all sounded, I'm like, well, what's going to be
fun, mysterious.
Yeah. And so, like, literally, no joking, like, we just sat there and we kicked back and forth names on text via text. And he was like the one, like, picking all these, kind of sexy female names. Cause I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, what am I going to pick? I mean, Molly, nothing against Molly's, but I was like, I didn't know, and so he started lobbing all these probably porn star names, which, as it turns out, Layla London is a porn star, but I am not that. I am not that Layla London. But so he kind of like presented me with a list. He's like, I said, I liked Layla, because he's like, you like Layla? And I was like, yeah, I like Layla. And then he goes, oh, Layla London. I was like, yes, that sounds great. Layla London. Oh, that sounds sexy and worldly and all this stuff. But I didn't know. The funny thing is, I literally did not know at the time that there was a porn star named Layla London. So there's a little secret that I don't think I've ever talked about even on my own podcast, like that I didn't
just doing
know.
a quick Google to see if I'm familiar with that. I'm not really paying attention to their faces, so I don't know these are, but I very well could have seen her.
Also, and I don't put my face out there, so it's not, like, if I do, it's like obscure or whatever. There's certain sites, like, I think on, where you and I met, I may use my whole face because that's different, but out for public consumption, like, no, like, I don't, like, on my social media and things like that. But I just like to, I like to, it's been very fun and liberating to stay anonymous because A, I feel protected. B, I don't think my neighbors really want to know, like, about who was banging me like a screen door, they're not, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I felt it was just better to keep some of this close to the vest.
Yeah. And, you're putting it all out there.
Yeah. Because I'm, if you've listened, I say things very I just don't hold anything back.
No filter.
Right. There's no filter. There's no filter. Yeah.
Have you heard of the podcast Dear Diana?
No.
It's a Q Code podcast, and you should really check it out because it's like your story. Demi Moore voices this woman who, it's like a narrative audio drama. So yeah, Demi Moore voices this woman who does a podcast where she interviews people about their sexual fantasies, but she's anonymous. And it's about her entire experience. Like, she's having an interesting sexual dynamic with her husband. Meantime, she's like interviewing people about all of these different fantasies that they have and putting it out there. And then, she's worried that people could figure out who she is.
Oh,
check it out.
Hey, Demi Moore could be me. Like, she could do me in a movie. Hello. Oh my God, her voice. I love that. That's amazing. No, I did not know. I'll have to check that out. That's
Dear Diana.
Cool. Yeah, Dear Diana. Okay.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, as soon as, I was perusing your website, stalking you as I do for all of my guests. And I was like, this like sounds a lot like Dear Diana. So.
Well, I just want to say that I was there before, Dear Diana. I'm pretty sure. Okay, all right. So there's no conflict. I didn't steal. I've not stolen anybody's ideas. No.
No.
Yeah. 100% me. Yeah.
So one of the things I love on your site, and when you talk about the different experiences that you have, is you like bring the guys on sometimes, whether it's on the podcast or
a lot of times. Yeah.
And you have like code names for them on the website.
They all get secret code names because I'm anonymous and they get to stay anonymous, and that's the fun part.
I love it, and it frees you up so much. And so, I mean, do they help you come up with the nicknames? Do you come up with them?
I give them. They don't have a say. The nicknames are. It's what pops into my head. I mean, and there's just various nicknames. I mean, there's been Socks, there's been Quinoa, there's Goldie, there's Cowboy N, there's BE, Clark. I mean, like, I'm sure there's D. Just plain, I mean, like, it comes to me like when I meet someone, if I'm seeing them, like all of a sudden, like poof, it pops into my head, like, that's your nickname. Yeah.
Has anybody ever been upset with their nickname?
No.
Everybody's like, that sounds right.
I mean, they don't. Nobody. I don't get any pushback on it, which is nice. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's your show. It's your spiel. So I guess.
I don't think they care. I think as long as I'm protecting their, as long as they get to do it anonymously too, there's a lot of freedom that comes with that. And I'm on the fence about how I feel about that. On one level, it really is so freeing, and I feel like maybe if more people did that, and, like if they just started a podcast and they did it anonymously, like, it's really freeing to just say what what you're thinking, what's on your mind, how you feel, and not have any reservations about it. And that's the benefit of it. But again, there's the small price for that is that, you don't have to stand sort of in the truth of what you're saying, really, and I mean that kind of, it's hard to say that because I'm very upfront, open, and honest. I literally let it fly. And there's times where I just go, oh God, did you really say that? Are you going to publish that? And I was just like, yes, I do. I will risk hanging my ass out there and saying something that I meant at the time that I know when I step back and think about it, I may be softer about it. I'll publish that anyway. Like, I don't edit myself. Because that's the truth. That's the real world about how we operate as human beings. We're messy. We're not totally, we're not this perfect Pinterest reel or this perfect, social media, all the highlights that people put up. And I never want to try to fit into that. I don't feel like that's real. So.
No, yeah. I think that's fantastic. I mean, Well, so outside of your, identity, is there anything that you don't share or that you keep, close to your chest? Like what are you comfortable being vulnerable about? Has there ever been something where you're like, I really don't feel comfortable sharing this? Or do you really just like let it like 100%?
There's a lot of things I don't feel like. There's a lot of things. I mean, 'cause since I've been doing this for a while, there's a lot of things I don't always want to put out there. I do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really great. Honestly, that's been great to do. I just, my most recent episode that just aired yesterday, actually, um, can you believe this? I went back and I read outtakes, just what I had written in journals from my teens and early 20s. And I guess it's funny because like I've always documented things, I guess, just never thought where that would go. But I just would, I read this stuff on a podcast, and a lot of it was about, which I'd forgotten, and so it was good to go back and read. It was a lot about how, as a young woman, I was sexually harassed a lot.
Yeah.
And that was normal back then. And I just put up with it. And I don't want to complain about it because, to be honest with you, I took that as, I'm going to be faster and better than these fuckers. Like, they're in a position of power. Guess what? I'm going to maneuver around you and come out better. And I did. And so, but writing this stuff down and just how I was feeling in the moment, I had forgotten this stuff, especially now because we have, it's so out there. It's like the Me Too movement.
Mm-hmm.
And it, you get the impression that a lot of this has shifted and changed, which I'm glad. But there's a part of me, and I hope that nobody takes this the wrong way. I feel like there is something to be said for having that adversity. And I don't mean to where it's to the extreme of somebody,
Sure.
let's say raping you or physically assaulting you. But there is something to be said for having those experiences, and it makes you sharper and faster and quicker and better to, like, next time you see that coming, you're like, oh, I don't even need, I see that coming. I'm like, oh, I'm around that. Like, nope, I avoid that like the plague. And I know how to handle that kind of stuff now because of those experiences. So it really kind of, I mean, I have to honestly say that it made me better. But, and then
tough experiences shape you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then just reading about too, even I was reading about when the first time I had voiced, I was frustrated about a partner not doing what I needed sexually for me to have an orgasm. And I was just like, wow, because that doesn't happen anymore. Like, right. Because I've moved past that as far as, no, but listening to what I wrote when I was 22, getting frustrated because this guy was, not doing it right. and I'm like, this is valuable. Like, so I hung my ass out there and I thought, do I really want to publish this episode? Like, really? Does anybody really care? Do they need to hear this? But I'm like, yeah, you know what? I thought this episode's for me.
Yep. There are some of those episodes that happen sometimes.
Sometimes I can probably think of about literally 3 that I can say out of 236 or what am I? Yeah, 200, something like that. Out of 6 years of episodes, 3 were just selfishly for me, and this was one of them. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's really valuable, I think, to look backward. I mean, obviously it can be, saying this to myself, it can be dangerous to focus too much on looking backwards, right? But there's something to be said for, my dad's, a historian, and he's always like, you can always predict the future based on what happened in the past. So There is something to be said for looking back and learning from your past experiences and seeing how those experiences shaped you. You know, I've been journaling since I was 12. And sometimes I'll go back and revisit those and be like, wow, Rachel, you were an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, so I was laughing, you know, like some of the stuff I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I mean, I'll just tell you. So when I was upset about one of the things I was upset about with my boyfriend at 22, because we had sex and he wasn't doing it right and I didn't have an orgasm. And I said, and, you know, I mean, here I am, I'm exposing myself naked in broad daylight for nothing, you know, because that's back in the day when you're still a little like, so I was still a little self-conscious. I had a great body, but of course back then in my head, you know, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not this enough or whatever. And I'm like, I'm naked in broad daylight having sex and he doesn't even, you know, because normally you have it at night and you can adjust the lights, whatever. And so one of the things I was super pissed about was that I did this in broad daylight for nothing.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
And I was serious. Like I read it and I'm like, whoa, you know, like now it doesn't matter whether I love it. You know, I want all the lights on. I'm all like, look at this.
See everything. You know, yeah.
I have changed, but doesn't matter what time of day it is. But this is just funny. I'm like, this is the mind of me as a 22-year-old. I was worried about my body in the bright ass daylight and not getting something for it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. No, that's such a cool idea for an episode. That is really, really cool. What a great idea.
I did it. Yeah. There you go. Note to self. You can do that. Go back in your journals. Share that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great idea. Well, okay. So when you started on this sex venture that you were deciding to make it a priority in your life, did you have a list of things that you wanted to try? Did you let those things come to you? Was there anything that you were automatically like, yes, this is something I want to try? Or, you know, I always liken kinks and sexual interests like a stoplight. Like green is like, yes, I absolutely want to do that. Yellow is maybe, like, you know, and red is a hard no.
I put everything on there that it didn't have to be the varying degrees of how interested I was. It was just, if I have a slight interest, I put it on there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And
so what are some samplings from that list?
Yeah. So I wanted to explore BDSM. And even at the time, I really didn't have a fair understanding about what it was about, but I put that on my list. I also wanted to learn how to squirt.
Can you learn how to do that?
Yeah.
I didn't know you could learn how to do it. I thought it was an ability that you either had or didn't.
No, well, I think everybody actually has it. I think there's a couple. What I've encountered or what I've realized is there's two kind of modalities to it. You can either naturally, it's easy for you, or if it's not, you have a partner that really understands your body and knows how to make it happen. So I came across someone, and you know, that was the fun part about my exploration was, you know, saying, I have this bucket list and these are the things I'm interested in, and do you want to help me, you know, knock some things off? And it was fun because then the different partners got to kind of like say, I'm into this, I'm into that. Yeah, let's try this. And so it really,
it's a buffet.
Honestly, yes. I mean, I wanted to go to sex parties. I wanted to try, you know, do sex clubs, like try threesomes. I mean, I had a huge, just long list. And one guy said, when I said, yeah, I really want to learn how to squirt, he said, oh, yeah, I mean, I can do that. I can make you do that. And I was like, really? Oh, come on. I honestly, I was like,
over here.
I'm like, yeah, I felt like, hello, I've been living in this body for all this time. Like you think you know more about me than I do? Well, knock yourself out. And the first time we were together, there wasn't a dry spot on the bed.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. I know. Yeah, talk about wow. I was like, who is this guy? Like, I need to go home because I need to think about what just happened here in this room. Like, like that's literally how I felt. He's like, oh yeah, when we were done, he's like, oh, you can stay. I'm pulling up my pants as fast as I can get them on. I'm like, no, my legs are still shaking. I'm like, I gotta go. I'm like, I needed time to process. That's the way my mind works. I'm like, what the fuck just happened here? What did this guy just do to me? He made my body do things that I had no idea that I could do.
Just like a complete lack of control in that moment. And there's something pretty beautiful about that.
Yeah. I mean, like somebody else totally being in control and just where you're in that surrender mode was amazing. And nobody had done that before. Like nobody taught me that. And he did.
Yeah. Put that on a list to try to learn how to do. Okay.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you were excited to try and it wasn't as great as you thought, or something that you were a little bit less excited to try and it ended up like blowing your mind?
Kind of two, I'll say it's two of a similar subject. So, actually very much the same subject. So I had on my list that I wanted to go to like a sex party and experience that. Well, I had in my mind that a sex party would be, or group sex or these sex clubs, however you want to lump them, that this would be very much like Eyes Wide Shut. That was my preconceived idea. I'm all wow. This is going to be so sexy. Okay. Let me tell you my first sex party. We roll up. I'm thinking we're going to this beautiful house on the hill, like gorgeous mansion. We roll
huge
up.
Mansion with ivy.
I mean, no, literally, like I'm like, this is where all the beautiful people go. No, we roll up and we're in the burbs, and somebody had converted their where they live, and they're having a sex party there that night. And you walk in, and like we had to walk, park down the block. I mean, it's minivan city, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, whoa, wait, where are we? And I'm like, this is a spec home. Like, where are we? What the hell? So we go in and we walk in and I'm dressed a certain way. I'm like, I'm in this slinky black dress and I'm feeling myself, and we have these masks on, and we walk in and there's a potluck.
Oh dear.
I'm like, and I walk over and I'm looking at all this like bubbling, cheesy cocktail wieners, like, and I'm thinking, who would eat all this greasy food right before you're going to have sex? Like, this is not sexy. And it's like going to Taco Bell and loading up and then like being like, hey, let's go for it. And like, no, like this is counterintuitive. What? Like, women, we don't want to eat a lot of food before we're going to have sex. That's like, I don't want to have a burrito baby in my stomach. Like, I want it flat, like, and so I'm sitting there like, what the hell's going on? Is this like, am I being punked? Is this a joke?
How many people were there?
There was a lot of people there. And so, and they had converted their whole house. They had rooms devoted to this, that, and the other. There's porn going on the big screen, like every room, like all these TVs. There's orgy rooms. They had like literally put plastic on their kids' bunk beds, like so that people could just get it on. And that room, I mean, it was crazy. And so once I kind of got past that, once I sort of like, okay, all right, I'm not eating any food. I'm not here to eat food. And I'm over the buffet line or whatever the fuck that is. And so then you start walking around and mixing and mingling, and you start looking, you're watching people. I noticed that the voyeuristic aspect of it was very interesting to me and intriguing. And I never knew that. Like, but that was my first inkling of the voyeuristic thing, that I found arousing. Just like here I am, people are just doing their thing. I'm watching them, everybody kind of looks at you. I wasn't doing anything, but I'm with my partner and we're walking around. Then we go into this one room where everybody's having sex and not together, but just with their partners. There was an orgy room and I was like, no, not doing that. Don't want any strangers, I don't want to
don't need that.
bump any business with strangers. So we go in this room and I was like, all of a sudden, after watching people and having them look at me and like, what are you going to do? And he just sat down. I'm like, let me just sit down. I'm going to give you like the best blowjob of your life. And so I gave him this blowjob with all these people watching and other people not watching. And then I could hear people like next to me, they're just couples, they're partners having full on sex, and it was just the whole atmosphere. It was because of that sexual energy. It was erotic. I didn't think it was going to be like, right. Cause at first I'm like, I got turned off by where we were.
Well, you needed to walk past the buffet.
Yeah, I had to get out of that buffet room because I'm like, this is just not my thing. But then, so we left, and my takeaway from that was like, okay, well, it wasn't really what I thought, but we still had fun. We had, he and I had a great time. It was about us. We did what we wanted to do. Now, fast forward to the second time I did that, I was with a different partner. I was at a sex club, and we went in and there were all these different, this was an actual establishment. Mm-hmm. And, we went into all these different rooms and he's very tall and I'm very tall and he's, 6'6", and then I had on high heels, which made me 6'4". And so, people would, as we're walking around and we're dressed very nicely and, people were noticing us. And that was a turn on, like people, because people go there, they either go there as partners or they go there as individuals and really kind of anything goes, but people are very respectful. Like nobody touches you if you don't want there to be touched. But he and I, we just started making out and there were all these people around us and he's kind of, like got his fingers in me and I'm up against a wall and I literally like was dripping down my leg. I was so turned on and I've never been like that turned on. I mean, just I get very turned on and very wet. I'm very excitable, but just having like literally people so close, pressed up so close to you, like, because I think they were hoping like, I would reach out and want someone to engage with us more than just them being able to watch. But for me, I was so turned on by just them watching. And I did not know that was in me. I didn't know I had that, like how hot that would be. Just like that I'm with this person that I totally love and that turns me on like nobody's business. And that also I get to tease other people with it.
Yeah.
Like look at how hot we are together. Like, look at how much this man turns me on. Like it was this different level that again, I never would have thought, like, had I have said at the first sex party that I went to, like, oh, that group stuff, like, no, that's, it's not for me. It's really kind of what you want it to be. And if you take away something, if you can find something good and then just let that grow and expand, like it really turned into something. It was just one of the hottest times. And then of course, after we left there and, we did a lot while we were there, but when we got home, whoo!
Yeah, I can imagine that. I suspect, I don't know this for a fact, but I suspect that I would really like being watched.
It's hot. I never thought people are like, are you into voyeurism? I'm like, no, but I have said never to a lot of things. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, that is the hottest thing ever. Yeah. It's just because I hadn't experienced it. I didn't know all those components and things that went into it. And when you're doing it with someone that you really trust and that you can experiment with and have fun with, and even if you're just doing it by yourself and just somebody that you like and respect and you're both there and you can take it in together, it's really fun. it's really fun.
Yeah. And that's the point, right? I mean, I think that's a big thing that I've learned over the course of this podcast is like, get out of your head and just let it be fun and
Yes.
connective.
Yep. Oh my gosh, because I can be so in my head, but
Mm-hmm.
but the one thing I've learned about my own sexuality is just to be you got to get out of your head, like be
Yeah.
open-minded and just go with it. And it doesn't mean you have to do anything, but expose yourself to it, and then you'll see, and from that, different doors will open. Like that's how this has gone on so long. My original list was, the X, Y, and Z, boom, 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 these
Sure.
things. But once I crossed those off, it's like 10 other doors open. Like, oh, I can see why this would be fun and that would be fun. And you just get you kind of get more and more open-minded, which is really fun.
No, that's incredible. Yeah, I feel like I should actually write down some of the things that I'd like to try. That's a great idea to just kind of put it out there and make it a priority.
You got the new year coming up.
I know. That's what I was thinking. I was like, "Ooh, New Year's resolutions. Okay."
You got your sex bucket list.
Put it on the
Make your
list.
2022 sex bucket list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so, you mentioned that you went to the sex club with a partner. And, like we talked about, there are different guys that I mentioned that come onto the show.
Mhm.
How do you talk to them about that and kind of like drop the bomb that like, hey, this is something that I do and, what we do might be subject to being spoken about.
Yeah. It's always, it's the opening conversation. And so it's not an afterthought. So it's not like I establish a relationship with somebody and then fill them in
Drop
after
a
the
bomb.
fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is no bomb dropping, bomb dropping. It's always, that this is the one thing I love about me is I am overly honest. And the one thing I hate about me is I'm overly honest. Like
Double-edged sword.
It serves a great purpose at times, and other times, like I will literally step my foot in it and go, okay, maybe you should have thought a little bit before you left that one out. But for me, there isn't any other way than just to be totally upfront and honest with someone else. And so guys actually are very, very easygoing and interested when they find out. I can't think of one that was like, yeah, oh, you're sexually, you're open sexually and you want to experiment and you want to do it with me. Like, I have never gotten anybody going, nope, not for me. I mean, they're like, yes, and so, yeah, I just haven't had any pushback or anybody not be okay with it. Now, over time, as feelings build and if you have multiple partners, there's the management of that and you have to be respectful.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ask your question before I answer it then without you.
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to ask about how the podcast and how the project changes, between monogamous, not, when you're seeing different people and, the fact that it is out there. So if somebody is, like you said, if somebody's like starting to feel feelings, they can hear out of your mouth what you're doing with other people. Like how do you navigate all of that?
It's it's a sticky, those are treacherous waters. And not because there's any dishonesty. There isn't, that's the thing. It's always known. But, and I've said many times on this podcast, if the roles were reversed, I don't know that I would go along with it. Like, I don't know that I'd be able to handle it because feelings do form. This isn't just like, oh yeah, whatever, like, oh, it's just a hard dick to have sex with. No, I mean, over time, like, and if you've listened to these episodes, like I have these relationships ongoing with these guys and they're great, and I think it's just, you have to find someone that's open-minded, and then you also have to be able to talk about the uncomfortable stuff, because the door swings both ways. It's not just that I am the one out there doing this stuff. Mine's a little more publicized, but they're
Sure.
allowed to do with what they want with whomever they want to. It's just that our agreement is that we disclose that and we talk about that, and we're also mindful of each other's sexual health, and that we're using, protection, and we're not exposing each other to things that we don't want to be exposed to. There's a lot of health management when it comes to that. But it again, you can do it, and if everybody's adult enough, you can do it. When the feelings come up, and like I said, it's not to say like there's not times where I'm like, oh, the thought of this guy with some other woman, like that's a happy thought for me. No, and vice versa. But it's interesting because you kind of get mature enough where you're like, okay, like I want you to have that experience. And then it actually kind of gets interesting when you can discuss that with the other person, and you're confiding in them, and you're sharing these stories with them about what happened. And it's kind of exciting in a way. Like I don't know, it's a different type of closeness to be able to have them as your lover, and then also your confidant.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. For, other dynamics. It's a place I'd never gone before, but I have, and I know it can be managed. I mean, it's about, you can manage it, and you can do it respectfully. And for some people, if it's not for them, it's just not for them. They can try it
Sure.
and they go, oh, it's not for me. But the important thing is if they hit on that, and they realize I'm just not comfortable with this, is that they have to be honest about that. Cause there was one, it happens, there's a couple guys where they don't handle it well. And so, that doesn't go well. That doesn't go down good. So, you just have to be communicating the whole time.
Reminds me of like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, like dating multiple different people, and then like feelings develop, and you're like, oh, like I was so in my own bubble with this person, but now I'm realizing that, they have these connections with other people, and I don't know how I feel about that. And it's also the communication that's required also kind of reminds me of, a couple that's decided to have an open relationship or be polyamorous. Like
It's
you really
totally,
need to,
that's what it is. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. So it's really the kind of the polyamorous type of
Yeah. Really interesting.
aspect. I know. Honestly, I never thought, again, like when I started this, did not think that was not on my radar. I know.
Yeah. What have you like learned about yourself, and, what are some like growing pains that you've gone through with the podcast? What's the evolution that you've kind of seen happen both for yourself and for the show?
Well, I know that it's sometimes there's times when I think I have my own relationship with the show. The show is like a lover in a way, because it's like, there's times where I'm just like, I don't want to be open with you. I don't want to put myself out there. I just want, I just want to withdraw a little bit. Like, I need my downtime, and I don't want to be up for public consumption. And then there's other times where there's sometimes I'm like, oh, I think this will be my last year. I'm not going to do this anymore. And then I just get all this feedback and all of these great messages and this wonderful energy from the people that listen and follow it. And they're telling me stories about how I made a difference for them. I'm just like, no shit. You're really, like,
Go
wow.
figure.
It really blows my mind, and it's humbling. It's so humbling. And I just, so I keep, when you're doing something like this long term, I keep putting it out there, and I keep putting it out there and giving to it, and it comes back. And it's very similar, it's similar to when you're in a long-term relationship, with a partner. It's very much like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, few more things I wanted to hit on here. I guess, you talked about reading your journals from when, you were 22. What's some advice if you could go back and, talk to the you who was writing in those journals? What's some
Oh,
advice that you would give to yourself?
wow. Um, you know, I didn't realize how much I was again, you see things differently, right? I didn't realize how much I was harassed by older men and men in power. And that's not it's not a slight. I mean, like I said, I don't feel sorry for myself in any way. But like, I mean, I literally had bosses that just the shit they would pull, like it would curl your hair. You would like they'd drive by my house, they'd call me on the weekends.
Ugh.
They would, I was I was in sales, and they would like cancel my room so that I was stuck. Like they wanted me, like, oh, well, you can stay with me. We would be in another, we
What the
travel,
fuck?
and oh no, I mean, like this this is some crazy shit, and it happened a lot. And so I didn't, I'd forgotten about that. You kind of just, when it happens when you're young, you don't have the retrospect to go, holy shit, like you just said, what the fuck? Because you as an adult woman go, well, what the fuck is that? And I remember feeling like, yeah, I knew it was wrong and I didn't succumb to any of it, but I'm like, you kind of put up with it in a way, because you didn't know what you didn't know at the time. And you're so, you're just trying to do the best you can. And you're really like, I just don't want to get fired. I never, nobody ever said, suck my dick or you're going to lose your job. Like, it was,
Right.
thank God. Like when somebody crossed a line, I was able, and I had enough backbone and stuff like that to say, no, I want my own room. I don't know what happened, but it doesn't matter. Like, I want my own room, and just like stand firm on that. But I look, when I go back and I read all this, I'm like, wow, it really happened more than I thought, like
Yeah.
more than I remembered, until I went back and started reading it. And then even just like I was saying, like when I listened to and I was reading about this one partner who, was just very, possessive, and, would try to like exert his will on me, what he wanted. At the time, I didn't recognize that as abusive, but I listened to an episode that you had done with a friend. I was like listening to what she was saying. I'm like, the stuff that he was saying to her and the way he was acting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds a lot. There's a lot of commonalities with what I was experiencing at the time, and just again didn't know it. I mean, I would again maneuver out of my, kind of Pollyanna my way out of this stuff, like literally in my own little bubble, like didn't know, right? No, literally, like didn't
Yeah.
know. And then I look back and I go, wow, holy shit, I was exposed to a lot of crap. And I don't even know. I'm on a tangent here. Like, I don't even know how I got off that, like how I got going down that road. But
Well, it's
just,
not even like it's not even like, it's just something that you noticed. It's not even necessarily advice, but it's just
it's, I think so, my, my takeaway, and there were people that would make little comments at the time, and I blew them off.
mhm.
And so, I would say, like, what would I say to myself back then? It's just like, hey, the people around you that care about you and that love you and that are actually stepping up and vocalizing their observation, don't sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
Really, really take it to heart. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but respect what they're saying. I have a lot of times when somebody gives me an opinion now that I'm older, when someone gives me an opinion, if I don't really know how to take it or I don't agree with it, and what I'll say now is, well, I'll say, what, thank you for that. I tell you what, I promise to do. I promise to, think this over and weigh it carefully.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. And that, because that doesn't say, it's so much of a better thing to go, you're wrong. I don't agree. What are you talking about? I don't see it that way. It's just, wow. Okay. Well, I tell you what I'll do. I'm going to take this under consideration and I promise to weigh it carefully. And then it's very disarming, but it also allows you, to be able to kind of really just consider what they're saying, because all you really have to do is find that small, what is there? Is there 2% of truth in what they're saying? What's the truth in what they're saying? Take that, be able to be open-minded enough to extrapolate that, because that's going to benefit you. It's only going to benefit you, So if you can find that in their sincere effort to communicate a message to you, you'll be a lot smarter faster.
It's excellent advice. I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to listen back to this and write it down.
There we go. Yeah. Thank you. I promise to weigh that carefully. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about self-love, which I guess, because I always say that the show is about dating, relationships, sex, and self-love, because without that, those other things aren't going to be as great. So how is self-love played into the journey, both, physical self-love and
are we talking about masturbation, or we're talking about
yes, but also emotional?
Okay, so yeah, let's put that. Let's make a sweeping statement about that. I feel like for me, what I've learned is that the self-love part, again, it's just one of those things that's ever changing, that you're growing and learning, and not to be hard on yourself when you feel like you landed yourself in a situation that maybe you weren't happy with or not proud of or shouldn't have been in, or whatever don't let that self-deprecating audio start playing in your mind. Just know that, everything is kind of there for your growth, and take away the message, that you need to. And then, and that is, not being too hard on yourself is a big form of self-love. And then there's things that you can kind of actively do that I feel like are self-loving. And that is, I felt like when I started the Curious Girl Diaries and making my sex life a priority, my pleasure a priority, my exploring myself as a sexual being, that was self-love, being in control and just honest with my partners about, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm doing, and these are my priorities. And I would love, if it doesn't align with what you need, that's no problem. But I would love, if it does, I would love for you to come along for the ride. And then the masturbation part, like, I think I speak mostly for women, because even though it's funny, my listener base is mostly men, but I think I speak mostly for women because I feel like we're underserved. I feel like men don't have a problem masturbating. Men don't have a problem making their sex life and sex drive a priority. Like, it's instinctual. And I think we have to work a little bit harder at it. And so to that note, I feel like I, maybe advocate a little bit more for women. And I did a 30-day masturbation. I did March Masturbation Madness Month, and I had to masturbate every day for 30 days. And when you start pouring into yourself, whether it's through exercise, eating right, getting rid of anybody around you that, relationships that don't serve you, and then also just giving your own body the pleasure that it needs, you start to feel so much better, so much sexier. I mean, there's this huge shift that comes with that, I think, for us as women. And it's about, it's kind of like, if you feel that you're good enough to masturbate and pleasure yourself every day, you're like tooting your own horn,
Mm-hmm.
and you're putting on a different energy, and then you're going to be attracting partners that align with that and that are down with that. Because I will say that I've had partners that are various age ranges. And this is the funny thing, because I talk to podcasters of different ages, and like I hear people like, oh, guys in their 20s don't want to please a woman. They don't know what to do. And then your older men don't know what to do, or the guys in their 30s don't know what to do. I will tell you, having been a liberal connoisseur of many age groups, I have not had that. I have found that I come across these amazing lovers who want to pour into you, like who care about your orgasm, who get off on the fact that you're coming multiple times. And I really feel that, again, that starts with me. That starts with me being a certain way and putting out a certain vibe and drawing to me a certain kind of lover. Because I mean, like I told you in the beginning of this podcast, like I've come across guys where I was like, oh, really? Oh, you know more about my body than me. I mean, no, seriously, men that have rocked my fucking world, like rocked it in the bedroom. And I'm like, what the hell was that? Like, and it's out there, and you can, if you're in the right mindset and you're, first of all, caring for yourself, like you will draw those kind of men to you, and they are worth it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, absolutely. I guess that kind of like answers the last question I had for you before we wrap it up, which is kind of like, what advice do you have for someone who's interested in experimenting? Do you have anything to tack on to that?
Just make a list. Like seriously, sit down and make yourself a sex bucket list, and just start to explore. If you have it, if you have even the slightest, remotest interest in it, put it on there and start to explore things. Because the minute that you do, one door opens 10. And even if you go, like I said, I went to that one sex party and I was like, oh no, I mean, that could have turned me off, but instead it didn't. I still had a great time with my partner, but from there, what I clued into was, oh my gosh, this voyeurism thing, like this is hot. I thought I'm going to, like I said, I told you, I thought, oh, it's going to be this eyes wide shut, all these people touching me and hands and all this big old orgy. No, that wasn't actually my thing. That's what drew me there. The thought of that, the eroticism of that. But what came out of it was that other people got to witness and see, just the hotness and the chemistry and, how into each other my partner and I were. And that was a huge, huge turn on. And then from there, other things sprang. So it's like, you just don't know. So you just kind of have to be open-minded and keep, make a list and be ready to revise that list, every 6 months or every year, whatever it will be. But you'll always be having fun adventures, and you'll always be excited and pumped up about your sex life and your sexuality.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's another interview that just kind of pops up right when, I needed it to.
Did you need that?
Love when that happens.
Oh, that's awesome. I love when that. Well, I'm so happy then. Yay.
Love that. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna 2022 make a list.
Boom.
Yeah.
There you go.
Layla, tell people where they can find you. Of course, I'll list it all in the notes, but this is your time to go on and put it all out there.
All right. Well, I make it easy because, first of all of my, since I wasn't doing this back in 2006, when everyone was starting to get their, different names on different social medias, the Curious Girl wasn't even a blip on the radar screen. And so all of my social media names are, they're a little bit different, right? So I'll keep it easy. The best way to find me is just to go to my website, thecuriousgirldiaries.com. From there, you can scroll down to the bottom of the homepage. You can link to all my social media. But before you scroll down to the bottom, if you want to leave me a voicemail, you can click on the pink tab on the right-hand side and leave me a voice message, and I will answer it personally. I answer every single one personally. Sometimes it takes me a while to get through them all, but I do. And I love the interaction that I have with listeners that way. From there, you can also find all of the syndicators of my podcast. Of course, all the big ones, Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google, all that stuff. But they're all linked there too. So really kind of that's, I guess my website is my
hub.
it's my before there was Linktree, there was my website. Like just go there and like boom, you can get anywhere you need to go or want to go. And again, I'd love any feedback from anybody that listens to this podcast.
Awesome. Well, Layla, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a blast. This has been my first interview in like 6 months or so, and it was a great one to come back to.
I got you back in the saddle.
Yep.
Yay.
So yeah, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your life story. So
thank you. I appreciate you so much, and thank you so much for having me.
And listeners, thank you for being here. My name is Rachel Dalton. I am your host, and you've been listening to Wine, Dine, and 69. And let's keep talking.